Hey, Dan here. Going to talk about a framboise that I did. It's actually, I call it my fake framboise because it's not really a framboise, but I'll leave that for another discussion in another video. This is the sour brown ale that I made back in November, which I made from 2-year-old sour yeast cake. It soured really quickly. I tasted it about a month after it soured, or it fermented, and it was really salty because I went over the top with my water salts. And then a month after that I tasted it again, and the saltiness, which was like a seawater, it was really intense, it was really gross, was gone. So what I did is I brewed another batch of the same wort at the end of March. The recipe, by the way, is the Dirty Bastard clone off of Homebrew Talk. It'll be linked in the show notes. Then I added raspberries to that. I also added a cup of wine, Malbec wine, and 375 milliliters of Jim Beam bourbon to that particular beer. The raspberries, I added 5 pounds of frozen raspberries that I got from Walmart. And I blended 2 gallons of the raspberry brown ale with 3 gallons of the sour brown ale. I got a lot of good feedback on it from my beer geek friends. They drink a lot of sour beers. They drink a lot of beers that I can't get or have never had. Really good palates. So I've gotten a lot of good feedback from them. They enjoyed it. So we'll talk about the making and blending of the 2 beers. So here I have the raspberry brown ale. 5 pounds of raspberries. It's been going for about a month on the raspberries. And there's the sour brown ale. That's the one I brewed back from November on the 2-year-old sour yeast cake. So first step after sanitizing my keg and everything, I'm just racking 3 gallons of the sour brown ale into my keg. I then racked 2 gallons of the raspberry brown ale into my keg. Those measurements are really handy with getting the right amount of beer into the keg. So the rest of the sour brown ale I racked, which was 2 gallons, I racked that into the raspberry brown ale fermenter to allow that to sour for a little bit longer on those raspberries. The idea is to let the Brett break down the cellulose in the raspberries, ferment that out, and see what I get in another 6 months or so. So the sour raspberry brown ale has been in the keg for about 3 weeks now. I do a set and forget method of carbonating at about 12 psi or so. Let's see, so the sour version is brewed in late November, so it's about 5.5 months old. The raspberry brown ale portion of it, that was brewed in late March, so April, May, that's about 2.5 months old. And they've been blended for 3 weeks of that time. So let's taste it. So vigorous pour out of the keg, got me about an inch of head. The color, don't know if it's coming through well in the camera or not, but the color is kind of a dark red with some hues of brown. I know in a smaller glass it's a really nice rich red color, kind of a pink, white pink, slightly pink head on there, big bubbles. The head dissipates pretty quickly. I'm using a glass with some etching in there, so the head does tend to form a ring around this glass. Other glasses it just dies out completely. Let's get the aroma. Yeah, mostly in the aroma at first you get a lot of raspberry, and you get some tart sourness. But you also get some of the oak that's in there as well. Just a light hint of oak, maybe maybe a little bit of tannin aroma. But yeah, mostly raspberry. Smells really good. It turned out really good. Sour and tart. The raspberry flavor is very balanced in there. It's not over the top raspberry. It's not. You don't have to dig for it. It's definitely there. You get a little bit of malt sweetness, perhaps a touch of roastiness in there. The raspberry has an ester called ethyl formate, gives it that almost umami kind of flavor that's in there as well. I would say it's moderately sour. Carbonation is perfect. I like that, exactly where it's at. I was thinking about raising it up, but carbonic bite is just about perfect for it. Just a slight bit of residual sweetness. It hasn't dried out completely. It's definitely not thin. There's definitely some body to it. Not a whole lot. I'd say medium to light body. So yeah, you get a nice combination of sour and raspberry. Just a hint of caramel sweetness in there. Yeah, really good beer. It turned out well for me. I think one of the tricks was putting the raspberries in the clean beer so that the raspberry flavor wasn't completely consumed by the Brettanomyces. It's an interesting way of maybe getting more fruit flavor into sour beers. Of course, then you have to either pasteurize or crash cool it like I did. If you don't do that, then the Brettanomyces and the stronger bacteria, perhaps the Pediococcus, that's going to completely thin out the beer and just you're not going to have any sweetness at all left. So cheers, and thanks for watching, guys.